Welcome back. Alrighty, so last time we ran through the race simulation workout, which was actually 4 workouts that you combine to give yourself a feel for appropriate pacing and to try and figure out those core efforts for each of the events: swim, bike, run. And then we talked about how when you freshen, you're able to put them together, not necessarily go faster. And that's an important thing to remember. So I had a good question, which is actually addressed in the article in part 1, which was, well, where should I put those simulations? And I thought rather than just focus on that, we're going to touch on that, but let's talk about planning that whole year and offer you events and the most beneficial events that you can put into your year. So let's shrink me down. And we're going to, actually, we can kind of blow me up over there in the corner. And then this is part 1 off the main Endurance Essentials website. There's a section called Supporting Races and Events that sort of touches on some ideas. Now, you're going to be thinking, well, where should I put my races? We'll kind of get to that. But hands down, the most effective event, especially for amateurs, anybody with a real job, family commitments, assuming last year wasn't a 1,000-hour training year, is bike volume. A bike volume focused week is going to give you way more benefit than doing a race, particularly a race that you need to travel to, because you'll have travel fatigue. You'll be resting before the race. You'll be resting after the race. So what's much better is what I call a training vacation. So you put together some sort of training camp, and the idea is to triple your typical weekly bike volume. And to fit that in, you need to shrink down your run volume and your swim volume, but you want to maintain the frequency. Don't just stop running. Keep the run short, either short off the bike, or if you're going to do a moderately long run, say 45 minutes to an hour, do that in the morning before you ride. And a simple way to do it is basically 2 days on, easy day, 2 days on. So if you have 5 days and those 2 days, the 2 days on either side of that easy day in the middle are bike focused. And you want to get the bike volume way up, particularly green zone, steady state, flat bike volume. That is the most specific form of fitness that's going to benefit your overall general capacity for your Ironman race. And you want to be dropping those in as often as you can. And if you can't do a 5-day block, well, just put a weekend in where you're going to ride long back-to-back days. And you're going to try and boost that general capacity by doing that. So you might do like day 1, it'd be swim, bike, transition run. Day 2, maybe you're going to do 45-minute run, then bike. And that's going to be plenty. That's going to be a big overload, and it's very specific to the sorts of fitness that you're going to need later in your season to be able to complete those race simulation workouts that we talked about last time. Okay, now we're going to slide. There it is. So this is working backwards from the A event, and that's 11 weeks. And really what I did there is I put the key focus of each week in there. So 3, 6, and 11 weeks away from your race is where you want to put those race simulation events. Those 4 workouts that you combine into a single race simulation event for yourself. And then I gave you other ideas that you can put in. Now, everything doesn't have to happen exactly where I laid it out, because life's going to happen. You're all going to have different schedules, but this gives you a bit of a feel for where you put it. And with these race simulation workouts, make sure that they're quality, in the sense that you don't want to be going into them tired. You don't need a taper for them, but you want to make sure that you're able to do a good effort and that they don't tip you over the edge. And that's why we put the first one so far out. 11 weeks out, because odds are you're not going to nail it. You're going to learn from it. It's going to be a learning experience. And you'll see here that week after, no events. It's a lower volume week because you're probably going to need to do some recovery afterwards. And then in brackets, I said maybe a local race. So if you're feeling good the following weekend, maybe do a shorter race. Do a 10K event or something just to break up so you're not feeling this pressure to kind of go long every single weekend. You have to manage your mental mojo across this critical 11-week period that ends with your race. And then the next week, normal week. And then the week after that, also a normal week. But now we're 3 weeks after that race simulation, that first one, and we're 2 weeks before the next one. That week there is a very good place to put some bike overload, because you get the bike overload and then you're going to have time to absorb it before you do that next race simulation event. Then after that second race simulation, normal week this time. Probably going to need a couple easy days at the beginning of the week, but you can do probably a regular sort of weekend. And I said that's a good place to put a 3-day bike block. So those shorter bike overloads, maybe long weekend of cycling after that. But then you've had 2 pretty big weekends, the race simulation weekend, a bike overload weekend, time for another lower volume week. Make sure you schedule these recovery weeks. When things are going well, you will be tempted to skip the low volume weeks. Don't skip them. They're an important part of adapting to the training, and they're also what will prevent you from going stale prior to the race. So you can maintain momentum and go into the race with trending upwards, as opposed to going into the race being exhausted, can't wait for the taper so you can recover. You want to be trending upwards the whole way. So now coming off of that lower volume week, setting yourself up for the race simulation, the final race simulation 3 weeks out. And then 2 weeks out, a normal week, but I make a note there, careful with run overload. Now you're coming into this final 17 days before the event. You can need to be careful with your legs. You don't necessarily have much time to recover from an error, particularly a run loading error if you get a niggle or something. So be more cautious with that. This could be a time actually, as the overall volume comes down, to maybe put in an extra swim workout in your week if you're feeling like you need to do a bit more. I find swimming has the quickest recovery profile of the 3 sports, cycling second, and running takes the longest to bounce back from. And then lower volume week leading into the final race week. And that would be how I would put the events in. So what you want to ensure is you're getting volume and specific volume. That is much more important than getting high intensity. A little goes a long way with the higher intensity, and you need to be training your general capacity and learning your race-specific efforts, paces, practicing your nutrition strategies. Thanks for listening. Hope this helps you out.